This video is meant to as a review of multiplying binomials, and we're going to add a little bit to it, see if we can't speed things up for you a little bit so that we don't get bogged down in multiplying things out a very long way. But I want you to start by doing the do now. I want you to pause the video first and do the best you can. You can use whatever technique you like for questions 1 through 4. Just pause now and I'll reveal when you unpause it what the solutions are, or the, not solutions, what the answers are. So hopefully you got that right. Excuse my bad handwriting, but I do the best that I can. Technically, when you're multiplying two binomials, or any polynomial for that matter, you're doing a double distribution. So if we look something, I took the basic generic binomial times another binomial where each of the terms are something different. And what we're going to do is we're going to distribute the second binomial over the first. So that means you're going to have A times C plus D plus B times C plus D. And then distribute again. That's why I was saying it was a double distribution. AD plus BC plus BD. Some of you guys may have heard the term FOIL. It's first, outer, inner, last. It's a way to skip the first distribution and go straight to the end. Why does that work? Well, if you look, if I take the first term of each of the binomials, that's AC. So here, when we have AC, that's the first two terms. And then if you look at the second term, it's AD, that's A and D, that's the outer, physically the outer two terms being multiplied. So AD is the outer two terms. And the next set is BC, which is these two things. It's that you're multiplying the two inner terms. So that's where that comes from, BC inner. And then for the last term here, you're multiplying the last two terms in each binomial. That's BD, and that's last. That is why FOIL works. It really is a double distribution. You're just skipping the first distribution and going to the end. Now, if we do that here, using FOIL, you multiply the first two, you get 6x squared. Outer 2 is plus 10x. Inner 2 is negative 3x. Here it's the inner 2. And the last 2 is negative 5. But these two are always going to be like terms provided you're using the same variable in each and that they're linear. Or if the first two terms have the same variable, the second two terms have the same variable, this technique can work. Now, at our level in Algebra 2, I would expect you guys to be able to do this at sight. So that means essentially you're doing FOIL, but you're going to take the first two, that's going to be 6x squared, and then you're going to do the outer and the inner in your head without writing it out. So I can, in my head, retain, oh, it's 10x, and the inner is negative 3x. Add those together, I get positive 7x, and then the last two is negative 5. So our expectations at this level is that you do not have to write anything out. You can just multiply them at sight. So I want you to actually practice doing this for the next 8 problems. So I want you to pause the video right now and try these. The only way you're going to get good at doing this in your head is to do a bunch of them. So this gives you a chance to practice. Like if you look at question 1, the first is going to be 5x squared. But the outer is negative 20x and the inner is negative 11x. When I add those two together, it's going to give me negative 31x. And then the last is going to be plus 44. So my expectations would be that you could do all of these at sight. So please go ahead and pause it and try them. If you're making mistakes, find worksheets online. There's tons of them where you're just multiplying binomials and just practice doing them at sight. Because in this class, we're not going to spend a lot of time waiting for people to multiply them out using like tables or using FOIL or using double distribution. Here are the answers then. Some other things that I would expect you guys to recognize, if you looked at the last two, like question 8, it's like actually a binomial squared. It's something, if you see that right away, I know that if I multiplied these two things out, it would be a plus b times a plus b. But if you notice, the outer is ab and the inner is ab, so they are the same term with the same coefficient. So in that case, what I can do, I know it's going to be square the first term plus take the product and double, so 2ab, and square the last term. It's always going to work this way because the outer and inner are going to be exactly the same thing. So that means you take the outer or the inner, it doesn't really matter. The product of a and b, multiply and double will be the middle term. So for this one, it's going to be a squared. The product of the two terms is negative ab. Double that is going to be negative 2ab. And then square the last term. Negative b squared. Anything squared is always going to be positive. So plus b squared. So square, double the product, square. For any binomial squared, if you look at number 8, if you square the first term, you get 16x squared. Take the product of the two terms, that's 12x doubled, gives me 24x, and square the last term is 9. So now I want you to try to do this. Pause the video and do these 4. You should be able to do them very quickly. If you're struggling with them, there's lots of practice out there. Binomial squares, worksheets, you can do lots of practice. And you should be able to do them within seconds. Here are the answers. Now, if you're multiplying a binomial by any other polynomial that is in descending order. In descending order, I mean here. You have x squared, then, look here, whoops, x squared, then linear, so this is called the quadratic term, the first one that I'm underlining or pointing at right now. Quadratic term, linear term is the next one, and then constant term, it's in descending order, and you have one of each like that. If you're multiplying a binomial, and a linear binomial means that the highest exponent in that binomial is 1, and that you only have one variable. So if you're going to do it the long way, that means by double distribution, you can take x and multiply by x squared plus 2x minus 5. So in other words, you're distributing the second trinomial over the first binomial, so minus 4. The negative 4 also has to be multiplied by everything. Some people like doing it the other way around, where they're taking, I'll put that up here, where they're taking x squared and then you're distributing the x minus 4 over both of them, or all three terms, so plus 2x, x minus 4. It really doesn't matter which way you distribute. Both of these techniques work, but it's time consuming. So if you have something that's very orderly like this and multiplying by a linear binomial, I'll show you a faster way of doing it. Then you distribute plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 4x squared minus 8x plus 20. Combine like terms, so we have x cubed. The squares here are going to give me negative 2x squared. Then combine, we get negative 13x plus 20. That's one option. Another option is this, that some people do, is they say, okay, I know I have to multiply the trinomial by the first term in the binomial, so they're going to just do that in their head and write x cubed, and then plus 2x squared minus 5x. So I'm multiplying every term in the trinomial by x. And then they're going to do the same by negative 4, multiply every term in the trinomial by negative 4, but they line it up under like terms. So they write negative 4x squared. I'm lining it up under the next like term, then negative 8x, and then plus 20. And then draw a line and combine. We get x cubed minus 2x squared minus 13x plus 20. Or you can do something I call expanded FOIL. So you're going to do first, but you're going to have, just like you did with a binomial, you have outer and inner, but now there's multiple sets of outer and inners. So you're going to have OI set 1, OI set 2, and then last, if I had 4 terms in the polynomial on the end, then we would have OI set 3. So the first thing we're going to do is multiply the first 2, which is x cubed. Then we're going to do the set of outer and inner. So look, they are going to be like terms. So the outer is going to be 2x squared, and the inner negative 4x squared. Combined in my head gives me negative 2x squared. And then we're going to do the next set of outer and inners until I run out of sets. So outer, inner, like that. So we have negative 5x and negative 10, or negative 8x. So negative 5x minus 8x gives me negative 13x. And then the last, you just multiply the last 2 terms together, gives me plus 20. And there you have it. You're doing the whole thing in your head instead of having to do a lot of writing. It's just a way to speed up multiplying by a binomial. So I want you to pause the video. Try these problems using this expanded FOIL. Again, it takes practice. You just got to train your brain to do it. You're not going to be able to do it like without having some practice at this. Pause the video, try them, and come back, and I'll reveal the answers. Okay, are we ready? You can check your answers.